Welcome to The Gaily Show, where we celebrate LGBTQ culture and entertainment, both in Minnesota and beyond. I'm your host, JP Dervagosian. So our podcast, This Queer Book Saved My Life, was nominated for a 2024 GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Podcast. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring in our executive producer, Jim Pounds, to talk about not just our nomination, but the GLAAD Media Awards themselves. Well, joining me now is our executive producer of this show, The Gaily Show, and This Queer Book Saved My Life, Jim Pounds, GLAAD Media Award nominee, Jim Pounds. Hello.
Hello, JP. How are you?
Even though it's been like a week or two, I still haven't quite processed that this is happening.
Well, it is.
I know, right? But I mean, it's the GLAAD Media Awards. Like, this is like the biggest thing, right, for our industry, and like the biggest queer award. I mean, recognizing LGBTQ media and fair representation and LGBTQ media. So the fact that we are one of those nominees is just, I don't know what to say.
It's interesting that you mention that, because I think you're right. The origin of this was not so much to recognize LGBT created content, but just to recognize if anybody managed to put anything in front of the public that represented us in any way, that was, eligible for an award. I did go back and look, just out of curiosity. I didn't look at the full list of winners that year, but Harvey Fierstein won an award for Torch Song Trilogy, just sort of,
oh, wow.
It wasn't a category, it was just sort of
special award,
and I think a lot of times too, maybe straight people were winning as a way of saying thank you, as a way of saying, we need more of that. I think it's maybe evolved into something a little different now. I don't know, but its origin was just, thank the Lord, somebody is saying the word gay or something like that. And I'm sure the standards have changed, but it was there was something thrilling that there was enough of that to actually give an award for it back in 1990. That's
well, you were So the first award ceremony was in 1990 for work that had been produced in 1989.
Right.
So, well, this year I was looking up some of the interesting stats about this year. So there are 310 nominees, 280 in English, 30 Spanish language nominees, and there are 33 overall categories. 29 of them are in English and 4 are Spanish language. And also interesting to me, this is the second year that they've had the podcast category. So the first one was last year with 10 nominees, and then this year there are 10 nominees. So we're one of the first 20 ever nominees for Outstanding Podcast at the GLAAD Media Awards.
Doesn't that seem late? I feel like, really? Only 2 years? That seems... I feel like you can't throw a golf ball without hitting 3 gay LGBT podcasters, so...
Well, I think it takes a while for the, I'm sure there's like internally there must be a committee process or a nomination process to say we want to add a category. Right. And maybe this process started 4 or 5 years ago, and then they finally got to it last year. Yes, but there are a number of excellent, and we've done crossover episodes with them on This Queer Book Saved My Life that I hope will be recognized by the GLAAD Media Awards, because they're doing some really interesting work. I thought we would also talk about, so we submitted 3 episodes for the nomination, and the first one was Valencia by Michelle T, and the guest was Leslie Vincent. For those who are listening on AM 950, we just aired that episode prior to this now of The Gaily Show. And for folks who are listening to this, a few days later, we'll include links in the show notes and on our website so that you can go in and listen to that episode. That was a really fun conversation with Leslie Vincent. I think she's so great. She's a singer and a songwriter based in Minneapolis, and her story was just so delightful. That idea of going to a bookstore and hoping that someone would hit on you. And then it's not happening and you're just feeling so alone. And I think like every queer person has felt that of, that space in between coming out and, finding community. And so for her to find Valencia at this bookstore, and how did she put it? That these were her first queer friends was both heartbreaking, and then also I was like, yeah, no, I know that was me.
Well, and she has the personality of a firecracker anyway, so I can just imagine her being, and I could sense it in the interview, sort of, tense about the idea of wanting to make something happen, or I'm here, why isn't this happening? It's because she has this great, very live wire personality. And I thought she and Michelle played off of each other so well. They seemed like contemporaries. I don't think they necessarily are, but they seemed very in tune. And it's always interesting, both when guests and authors are very different, and it's also really interesting when they're very similar. They seemed similar to me. I felt like it was two friends chatting about something, as opposed to people that were, somewhat distant from each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Michelle is amazing, she has her own podcast, Your Magic with Michelle T, and she's written so many other books. Before we hit time, I did want to mention, so the other 2 episodes that we submitted that helped earn us the nomination was The Velvet Rage, and that our guest was Chris Tompkins. And what I loved about that episode was, how raw he was and how honest he was about his internalized shame, and religious trauma, right, as well. And I know that comes up a lot in my background, but I think that was really, that was a great conversation. And then Blind, a memoir. The author is Bello Miguel Cipriani, and the guest was David Elijah Nahmad. And that was also to have that conversation around disability and how that intersects with queerness, I think was really important. For folks that are listening on The Gaily Show, we got to get you back to the episode. But we're going to talk a little bit longer. This will be bonus content that you can listen to on our website or on YouTube. Just look for our channel, The Gaily Show on YouTube or on AM950's Facebook page. Listen to my full conversation with Jim on our YouTube channel, AM950's website, or search for The Gaily Show anywhere you stream your podcasts. The GLAAD Media Awards will be streaming on Hulu later this spring. Obviously, we'll be letting you know more details as we know them. Okay, tickets are going fast for Magic and Mimosas, Disney's drag brunch at Roxy's Cabaret. It's Saturday, February 17th. I've never seen a Disney-themed drag brunch before. They are promising all the staples of an amazing drag brunch, delectable breakfast, and most importantly, bottomless mimosas. The drag queens will be performing as fan-favorite Disney characters. Plus, I'm told you're encouraged to come in your favorite Disney attire. For tickets and more, head to roxyscabaret.com. Speaking of tickets that are going fast, on February 23rd, Randy Rainbow for President, provided by Live Nation Presents, will be at the State Theater for one night only. We haven't seen many new satirical videos from Randy Rainbow as he's been on this sold-out campaign tour. If you haven't seen Randy's videos, he lampoons the Republican Party by rewriting the lyrics to your favorite musical hits in some brilliant takedowns. Tickets for Randy Rainbow for President available at hennepintheatretrust.org. Onto TV, we have a few queer shows we want you to be on the watch out for. Premiering this past week on FX was Feud, Capote versus the Swans. Ryan Murphy is behind this 8-episode series, which is based on Lawrence Lemur's bestseller Capote's Women, a true story of love and betrayal and a swan song for the era. The series is about Truman Capote, the literary maestro, who gets entangled with high society's crème de la crème, who he affectionately nicknames his swans. Capote ingratiates himself with them, becoming their confidant, and then for reasons unknown until we watch, he betrays them by publishing a fictionalized expose in a piece called Answered Prayers, which, blows up his friendships with them and leads to some pretty epic spiraling. Only a gay man could have put together this cast: Naomi Watts, Diane Lane, Chloe Sevigny, Callista Flockhart, Demi Moore, Molly Ringwald, Treat Williams, and Russell Tovey. I mean, come on. New episodes every Wednesday night on FX and then streaming the next day on Hulu. Also on Hulu is Chrissy and Dave Dine Out. Chrissy Teigen and David Chang and queer comedian Joel Kim Booster host random dinner parties around Los Angeles. I don't know why Jim Kim Joel Kim Booster's name isn't in the title, maybe because he's in most but not all of the episodes. For the premiere, however, Chrissy, David, and Joel are at Pizzeria Bianco, and the episode features the making of the perfect pizza with Chef Chris Bianco, along with special guests Jimmy Kimmel and Molly McNeary. I'm so-so on Chrissy Teigen, but I'm a big Joel Kim Booster fan. His Emmy-nominated queer film, Fire Island, came out last year. He has a comedy special on Netflix, and now Chrissy, Dave, and Joel dine out on Hulu. Turning to books. I get a little suspicious of the most anticipated book lists because maybe I'm cynical, who's the decider, but I read them, so I guess who's winning. But one that caught my attention is Dead in Long Beach, California by Vanita Blackburn. Here's the premise. Our main character, Coral, finds herself in a harrowing situation when she stumbles upon her brother, Jay's lifeless body, the aftermath of his tragic suicide. In Long Beach, California, all she discovers is a sparsely furnished bachelor pad and a cell phone with just a few contacts. Acting on impulse, Coral decides to keep the phone and unexpectedly starts replying to messages as if she were her deceased brother. I don't want to say much more than that, except to say this is, by all accounts, a very imaginative and yet grounded approach to processing grief as Coral's lies begin to tighten around her. Vanita is a Lambda Literary Award finalist for her story collection, How to Wrestle a Girl, and this is her debut novel. It is out now. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Our podcasts are executive produced by Jim Pounds, creative and accounting support provided by Gordy Erickson, production, distribution, and marketing support provided by Brett Johnson, Chad Larson, Laura Headland, and Jennifer Ogren from AM 950. You can find us on social media. Search for This Queer Book Saved My Life. Also, check out AM 950's YouTube channel or Facebook page. As always, you can connect with us through our website, thisqueerbook.com. And until our next episode, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.